Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9. Of course, we're playing as Germany. And hey, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Love to see you around here more often. Okay. Also, this is just a second video with the new computer. And I'm still asking for feedback on audios and things. Now, I haven't gotten whatever you may have said on the previous video. These were made right after the other, and no one had any chance to comment, so nothing's changed from that one. But just if you haven't watched or haven't commented, and positive feedback is good too, and relative feedback is, you know, a little more, a little less, a little whatever. Is all useful. Okay, yeah, we could use that. We have plenty of money coming in, but we do want to rebuild up a bunch. That small ship armor has advanced, which will be grayed out, but we need to shift it over. So let's go over to road network improvements. And air bases for West Germany. Yes, 6. And yes, we're coming down here. Get these all up to the top. Do fast finger here. There we go. Now, starting to push into other things. Not that that's bad. By 38, that's definitely when I want to start going over to other production. Still continuing some, especially in key. Yeah, it's way over the. Currently, there are just 10. One city has 12. I saw. I see, but in the key ones here where there are heavy ICs, looking for ones that have been completed there may be none. Yeah, see, that's 12 events, building slash having events. And unlike 4 has a, you know, a provincial limit on how many ICs can be in a province or structures. And so when you want to give things by events, you normally go in and throw on a and open up another infrastructure level. Here you can only build to a maximum of 10, but you can have a value higher than 10 that can only be done via event. Okay, well, it looks like all our provinces with heavy ICs currently have something building in them. Let's build a couple of, or a few ICs out here. And then we are going to, yeah, do another quick, because that's well over, but and I don't mind starting to produce other things, but I do still want to mostly get through 1937 building ICs, and that allows us to plow through these other things fast, but we don't want to hit those magic numbers. Now, of course, you can go in and mod things. One, totally remove the before you start. If you start messing around with it after you're playing with the thing, that can cause problems. You might require a restart. Austrian, no. I don't want to build up money. And we're going to take yours anyways. Peacefully, but okay, small ship main armament has advanced. Small ship classes can now be improved. That may be, yeah, that's what we want to do because it's a 36. Get that going. Like I say, you don't want to mod stuff in the middle of the thing unless you're going to restart. You can get rid of the limitations. I don't disagree with the limitations because they went in and, especially when you get all 4 submods like we have currently, but TRE and GGA particularly, there's a lot of other costs that are coming in, like the Wear Crest system. That's, yeah. just one IC, but currently 1% of ICs. The TRE Pioneer program, the TRE building right now is 6%, something that is hit from TRE. It'll go away in a while. That one will be a short term. But really sort of make going that. But they did they build like ICs, just build ICs to the 39 or something. And then at that point, because they get so cheap to build, you just build so many of them, you could just quickly spam build all your regular units and have a huge army, in early 1940. And so that's just sort of an exploit, not quite a bug, but an exploit that's a bit. Fighter ground crew training has advanced. A bit unfair, a bit overly, even though you're playing against the AI, just a bit overdoing it. So I agree with the idea of having limitations. Whether 400, 450, 650 or something is the right limitation, I'm not sure, but it didn't hit our last build. Money, no. Although we need, maybe I should have, because maybe I'll go in. Okay, the Salschutz. Now, again, reading a book about, talking about in the last episode, about the SA. And found out that there was more than one SA in Germany at the time during the, at least during the 20s. There was the Saal-Abteilung of the, I think it was SDP. Well, it was one of the socialist parties, and they wore, if I remember correctly, sort of green jackets and blue caps, and they were, unlike the Nazi SA, they were really more of, and they were, as in this is a Salschutz, room protection kind of thing. They were sort of meeting, because these were the socialists, not the communists. These were the socialists. These were to protect socialist meetings. They didn't have nearly the offensive, if you will, nature of the SA, but they were there to protect them. Now this is the Salschutz, the SS, but it's only for like room protection. This is sort of the elite type within the National Front of the Nazis in Switzerland, and that's sort of their armband and their, well, that's just party badge. You can sort of see the crosses out to the edge, Swiss flags there that sort of look like Danish flags, but this is sort of the protection group of them. Now, what would they have become? Whether they would have come into the SS, kind of thing, the Nazi SS, or not, I don't know. What if they've gotten in power, what they would have been. Okay. This event is inspired by real-world events, but this is not a real-world event for this period. Sometime in the post-war Germany, I think in the 50s, I remember reading, the West German government decided to pay off the Ascari pensions, veterans, primarily in Tanganyika, but I think in other places too. And so, as a lump sum payment to the veterans, because they were supposedly have been paid all along theoretically, but they hadn't, because hey, Germany under the Weimar, the inflation hit, they couldn't continue it, and then the Nazis were uninterested in continuing it. But we have the opportunity to pay off the pensions. Historically, just as the story goes, is it was going to be a one-time payment. They get down to Tanganyika, a bunch of people. Now, you remember, these guys were World War I veterans, all of them sometime in 1920 or whatever, ended their service for Germany. And this is in the 50s. So, you know, they're not, you know, they may have been 20-year-old men. So, you know, you're throwing on another 30-some years. So, you know, you're talking 50s, 60s. You know, not hugely ancient for Africa, but I'm sure a lot of them didn't make it to that time period either. But just to pay them off. So, a lot of older men showing up at the time. And how to determine who should get the pension and who shouldn't. Well, a bunch of guys showed up with paperwork, you know, German paperwork. Some of them had uniform remnants, you know, badges or whatever. I don't know if anybody's still rocking a full period Ascari uniform left over, but they had uniform remnants and that kind of thing. And guys showed up without any paperwork, any stuff. Well, the way when a guy had one of the Germans that came down for the thing had the brilliant idea of, well, although they didn't speak German, the Ascaris, they knew the manual of arms, and that's, you know, attention, you know, right face, left face, shoulder arms, port arms, you know, how to do, you know, do the rifle. And they were all trained to understand those commands in German. So they got some brooms and then had the guys go into, you know, a different room, and they would, you know, give the commands in German. And basically, supposedly, all of them could just understood the German, you know, shoulder arms, and would snap to and shoulder the arms in German, and there wasn't, you know, hesitation or whatever, so that they knew what, without really speaking, you know, much German at all, they knew all the port of arms. So that's how they figured out who to pay out the pension. But here we're looking at yearly pensions to pay out or not to. It's going to cost us some money and some supplies. But this is part of my element of gaining cores or why we would gain cores in Tanganyika. German Ascaris were paid better than anybody else's Ascaris, any other national Ascaris in Africa, to my knowledge. Better than the Dutch, which I don't. Dutch have any colonies on here? I don't know, but definitely better than the Belgians, better than the British, better than the Italians. I think better than the Portuguese. They were, you know, the highest paid Ascaris, and this was well before World War I. They were paying their Ascaris better than anybody else was. So if you get paid, and a lot of the Ascaris, I do think, switched service into the British, and the British were definitely recruiting Ascari units out of Tanganyika, and it was still called Tanganyika then. Didn't go to Tanzania until they added Zanzibar to it, but so we can pay off the pensions, which will gain us a certain amount of loyalty. So we're going to do that. Pay off the World War I veterans. That is part of the path, and a necessary part of the path to getting cores down there. Ah, yes. Okay. More of the SA's involvement in training the military. A medical guide for military exercises. This is sort of a how to safely do military exercises. And it's an SA book. The SA were highly involved in training not only themselves, but military people, and also people that were liable for military service in military skills. So as you can see here, nutrition and march hygiene and other sorts of stuff. So we get a training bonus. Yes, 50 supplies, almost nothing, and almost to nothing, you know, combat medicine and first aid, but a little bit. But they were involved in these kind of things, and that's what these manuals were doing. You notice the guy was throwing a grenade in the picture. The SA was continuing very much to be involved in this. This I thought was interesting. This is a house here that the SS bought. There's the pool that either was there or they put in. This is looking out the balcony. Those are clouds down in between the mountains. So this is a rather high altitude, alpine type thing. There's sort of the front of it, an SS flag. This is, the photos were from 1937 period. So don't know exactly if this is when they bought it or they had already bought it. But this was an SS, as an institution, owned holiday home that they bought. And so it was exclusively used for the SS. Nobody else can, you know, not like open to the public. It was just, you know, place to get away and hang out with only SS dudes. So SS HQ gains a little bit. You don't get a choice on this one. but I thought that was fascinating that they were doing that. Die Front, which was founded by Nazi Germany, along with the Iron Broom. Which was funded by Nazi Germany. Along with that, was the main voice of the National Front. So this is the primary National Front newspaper within Switzerland. Again, you're getting these, and the effects are happening in Switzerland. But you're getting notification. You're getting these notifications getting to do this because we decided to support the National Front. Now, the Germans were doing this in other places like Switzerland, the Netherlands as well, but I just haven't made events for those yet. NS Kampfspiel, the National Socialist fight games in the area of SA Group A West Stuttgart, 1937. These competitions encourage training within the SA. Now, like I say, I'm reading a book currently that's covering the SA of this period. I haven't got to this period yet, but I've been researching this for a while. And part of my research is original source material. Now, the original source material is mostly things like posters that talk about the event, photos from the period. Sometimes they come from photo albums that are for sale on the internet, and so they're putting, sample pictures on them, or the pictures and whatever. And the main thing is you get to own the actual photo. So I've been collecting those, and this is how I was researching what the SA was doing during this period. And this is just, this one event is representing other events, so we get little bonuses, a little more manpower. Japan, money for crude oil. Yeah, we'll do that. Keep going up. Okay, we'll do an additional SSHQ this time. This is from the... We'll just give it to the Haupt now, but probably send it somewhere else. From the D-Worms mods. Okay, we're still building that down a little bit. Okay, that's all looking good. So all of this is really, not just from the one book I've been reading and other things. Most of the stuff you look at and almost starts disappearing information on the SA after 1935. But they were very much still around. And at this time in 1937, much larger than the Army. Even though they've now come in and started conscription back for the Army, the SA is still larger. The SA in 1939, if I remember correctly, is larger than it was in 1930. The beginning of 33. Now, under Ernst Röhm, once they get in power, the SA balloons in size. After the Röhm putsch and putting him down, killing him, the SA is reduced down because it was just getting, I think, 5 million men. I don't know, getting huge. But they reduce it by 1 million or 2 million men, so they get rid of a bunch of people and then reduce it down, streamline it somewhat. But it's still at that time, especially in 35, before or 34. At that time, it's much larger than the 100,000 man army. So it's huge thing. Okay, Deutsches Stadion, the German stadium. The Fuhrer has asked Reich architect Albert Speer to build a stadium at Stadt der Reichspartei in Nuremberg for the rally. So this is what they were going to build. Here's a model of it. They didn't have computers in those days. I know it's shocking. What do you know? But of course you knew that. But so you don't just go up and start building some of this stuff. You need to figure out how it will work. I know the Colosseum in Rome is actually a remarkably good human management system, especially for viewers coming in and going out. There's a lot of entrances and exits. So to get a lot of people, once the show's over, to get them out efficiently and get them in when they, for the Colosseum, it was going on, shows would go on for a long time. So people would come and go during it and slowly build up. But once it's over, everybody wants to go home. So it was really good, especially for classical era human management. So it does a lot of that really well. But you still and it wasn't, the Colosseum was sort of the greatest, biggest arena kind of thing. So the Romans had a lot of experience for building it. Well, Hitler wants this huge one. I mean, it's 24 hectares with 5 tiers of seats for 400,000 spectators. That's huge. And so, how many restrooms are you going to have there? Toilets, whatever you want to call them. Are you going to have in there? And how many, I don't know, are you going to serve food? Like a modern sports games, they sell food, that both, counters behind as well as hawkers going out. I don't know if that was in the plan. But even whether that's in the plan or not, you're going to have restrooms, how many people if they're there all day, and how using it and efficiency. So you've got to plan all this out. It isn't just, this is what it looks like. And obviously this model is just sort of the overall thing. But so they went and they found, and I don't know if it says here exactly where, they found, and they on a hillside, they and reshaped it out to give a section of this seating, as you can sort of see there, so that you could sit up here and you could sit down there and see how well you could see, and you could sit multiple rows of people and seeing over each other's head, and how well you would be able to see what's going on down inside. So they built this temporary structure, and there's Hitler, there's Albert Speer walking up the hill to sort of test out Speer's sort of plans, and it was all working good. And hey, no problem, it'll cost less than 2 Bismarcks, 2 more Bismarck battleships. So of course, players, what do you want? Do you want some Bismarck battleships, or do you want a sports stadium? Now, you don't actually get the before you just, oh no, I'm not going to do it. You don't actually cost the of the 2 Bismarcks, because you don't actually build it. You're just starting to build it, test building it, and getting it going. It doesn't get completed historically. But you will cost you some stuff, but you'll gain some popularity, or you'll lose 3 points. And see, right now, you can look here, and it varies from game to game. We're at 32%. Do you really want to go down to, 29% popularity? Or, or would you rather go up 2? We're going to go up 2. Okay, we're getting this because we said no to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is sort of Germany's answer, but it's only for Germans. Let's see. Ludwig Trost, architect. Alfred Rosenberg, that's Rosenberg there. Wilhelm Fletcher, not quite sure. And Baron, I don't know who exactly, but that's Rosenberg. And he's one of these guys that I was talking about that is one of the leading elements of National Socialism and National Socialist thought in this stuff. He is a former member of the Thule Society. Oh, an interesting thing, people talked about banning the occult societies in Nazi Germany as evidence of things, and different people have used it different ways. In this book that I've recently read, Hitler's Monsters, goes into this very deeply. The Nazi leadership were occultists. They were heavily occultists. That was their religion. What they were banning was occult frauds, because so let's say if you were a mind reader, you could read somebody's mind. And if you were a scientific mind reader, if you were a scientific occultist, you were fine. But if you were a fraud, if you were a fraudulent mind reader, so meaning if you were just pretending to read somebody else's mind, you were a fraud, so you were banned. So this is what their whole thing is. Now, of course, as I'm saying this here, is they believed in scientific mind reading. They believed in this stuff. They believed in scientific spirit mediums that can talk to ancient dead people. They firmly believed in it, and they believed that it was scientific. Now, of course, as some of you go, well, I believe that. Okay, people believe that. But you at least I would say, I don't think there's scientific evidence that it happens. You believe it, okay. You believe that somebody is communing with an ancient dead person, fine. That's, the way you want to interpret things. But they believed you could somehow scientifically do it versus non-scientific things. So part of it was they're wanting to root out frauds, but also any sort of occultist elements that weren't National Socialist, that weren't supporters of National Socialism, were banned and suppressed. But this is, and the book goes into it, this is all chaotically implemented. Some people are sort of banned and then they come back. Some people are put into Dachau for a while. But I gather from the book, they're sort of nice Dachau and not nice Dachau. The occultists were put in nice Dachau. Sort of like in, nice arrest versus we're torturing you arrest or something, I don't know. But then we're later let out. And so if you're with the National Socialist and you're an occultist, you're fine. You're actually supported. They're given money. There's institutes, all kinds of stuff going on. Rosenberg, like I say, comes from the Thule Society. Before the Thule Society sort of breaks up, it is reformed at some point. Again, I don't remember the years, but I think around 37, around this time. And then the new leader of it gets sort of banned or something like that. But he's forced to resign from it. So this is what people sort of say, talking about when the Thule Society was sort of coming to use that term. Thule sounds better too, at least English speaking ears, sort of like Zool, sort of like impressive, but I gather it really is pronounced Thule Society. But he's removed. But the Thule Society, the sort of rebirth of it in the 30s, and it goes on past the leader's removal of it for a while, and then the Thule Society members decide, National Socialism is just doing what we want to do, so there's no point in our society continuing. So they actually dissolve at the end of the Thule Society in National Socialist Germany. And I know people talked about before that, the banning of the Thule Society, that and if you, for those of you who haven't been watching a long term, the Thule Society started the Deutsches Arbeiterspartei, the German Workers' Party, in which Hitler joins the German Workers' Party, and Hitler adds National Socialist German Workers' Party. So the Thule Society starts Nazism. It sort of breaks up. Now they talk about in the book some of the people from the Thule Society that are very much part of the NSDAP that sort of get pushed out, but they're not pushed out because of the Thule Society. It's just power struggles, and there's all kinds of power struggles going on in the NSDAP. They get pushed out. Some don't, like Rosenberg, like Rudolf Hess. The deputy party Führer was a member of the Thule Society well before Hitler ever heard of the Thule Society. So the Thule Society becomes National Socialism. And so the Thule Society goes away, but then we notice later, I think it's 41 or 42, one of the premier Waffen-SS regiments is named Thule, the Thule Regiment. So they very much, and that goes to other things, because Thule is another sort of a Germanic version of Atlantis. It's and I'm not even after reading the book, I'm not absolutely sure whether the Nazis were clear. This is not on the book, but whether the Nazis were clear that the Atlantis myth that they believed was telling the story of Thule and the Thule civilization and city breaking up, or whether it was sort of just misnamed, or whether it was a similar or different, a different thing going on. But so the Thule Society is just a society supporting Thule and the World Ice Theory and all this other stuff. So it continues. So don't let anybody think that the Nazi leadership at the highest levels weren't deep occultists. They were. And this all comes together into all of this stuff. Okay, so for a little bit of money, we get putting out the prize. We get a bunch of gain. We lose in dissent, gain popularity, that kind of stuff. So, good. We're down to 2 in dissent. And we now have 34 in popularity. And we have another. That's put us over in research. Wow. What is it? You don't get industry. You don't get a notification if it goes over via an event. Industry. Well, we should probably go here. Okay, so we're actually maxed out, so we need to stop that. Research. So we've got that. We've maxed out installation security. Finally figure out what all this does. Once you go through, as you go through these levels of things, you start to get random airbase events. What the developers figured out is that in places you need more air bases. So there are some random airbase events for the AI, and the AI just can't effectively build air bases, so they've done a lot of that. And to keep you from doing something the AI can't, it gives you random air bases, so you can't pick where they are. So that's what I understand that does now. Installation security. Still not entirely sure what exactly that does, but well, we can do it. Industrial efficiency, so we want to do that now, most assuredly. Industrial efficiency basically just reduces the amount of ICs it takes to build stuff, and speeds up building speeds. And it looks like because of things we need to pump up the volume there. Yeah, okay, so we're building these 3 subs, and we're partly building that 1 air unit. Okay, now pilot training advanced. Oh, pilot down here. Okay, 38, so we're going to switch that to ground crew training for nav, pilot for nav, naval aviation, air power. Norway, we give them money for rare materials. No. Well, hold it. No, we're going to say no for Norway. Let's just see if we can sell some more supplies to the United States of America. Oh, is there somebody else? Like Japan wants supplies? No. I don't have any money. Romania has lots of money, needs some supplies. I think we can sell supplies. Romania. Okay, 39. 14, so let's just do a little under. China, well, not a no, but Soviet Union we may do so. Okay, they got a little bit of money. Let's see, they need supplies. See if we can sell them some supplies. No, they don't want to buy. Turkey. Yugoslavia, oh, they need them badly. They don't have any money. Okay, well, let's see what we can do with the US. Okay. Armor unit training has advanced. Very good. Okay, 39 for special forces. That, those where we want to, or we're researching. All of those, infantry, doing their thing. Look at armor, 38, 38. Port tank we're not going to build, so we don't want to do that. Tank destroy. Oh, we could do our cars, but let's look. Oh, let's do plate armor thickness. That's a good replacement. Okay, the Ninth Party Congress, the Rally of Labor, Reich der Arbeit. So we're going to get 6 ICs improvement, then plus modified, so it's going to jump up from there. That, yay. That, the lights going up straight up forming the column, that was Speer's idea. He came up with that. Okay, Romania, we give them money for rare materials. Okay. We're now highly popular. Well, yeah. Peru, money for rare materials. Well, okay, okay. Now I want to continue to grow. More money, more money. Not just buy things. So we had a positive territory there. Well, with more popularity, we get more research efficiency or more research points. Well, let's do things like gun turrets. Well, ammunition capacity. And now we need more because we now have more ICs. Okay, we are getting up to not yet over 400, but as soon as we start, I'm going to start looking at things. I don't want to go over 450, not even for a little bit in 37. Okay, Panama, okay. How much are we down? Ecuador, okay, and okay, Colombia. The Great Maneuvers of 1937. This is a later photograph I've come to realize. Guderian, but hard to find, and you may have noticed in a recent thumbnail for one of the videos, I found it had a Spanish. It was used on Wikipedia, so I open nature, but it's a modern drawing of Guderian. But the reason I used it for one of the earlier things for his book and such thumbnail is because it had him with, I believe, colonel's ranks as opposed to general. So fairly early on, it's hard to find photos of Guderian early on because see, that is a knight's cross and that is the oak leaves above it. So that's knight's cross with oak leaves. So he doesn't get that until World War II starts. I believe he gets those in at least the knight's cross and going into France. Somebody can look that up if they want. But and again, I encourage anybody if they want to post like links to Wikipedia and things like that. If you so do so, and it could be if it's a 5-year-old thing, it doesn't have to be recent. Just because somebody else may want to come along, and I always recommend scroll down to the comments, quickly read the comments because there are corrections, sometimes made by me, other times by other viewers, and other interesting stuff we talk about. Related, yes, we want to improve relations with Italy. Soviets. Money for oil. Do we start our oil product buying? Probably, even though of course I want money, but The reason, of course, to buy from the Soviets is once you get cut off from the U.S., you give them money for rare materials. No. Once the war starts, one, the U.S. will stop trading with you, and well, obviously Soviets will too once you go to war, but the U.S. will likely embargo you at some point, even before they go to war. But just losing of convoy links. Okay. Ford Works Zeitung. This is the Ford Manufacturers Magazine. This will give us a little automotive industry gain. I thought this was interesting, being that it's American Automobile Club, and this is their American Automobile Manufacturer factory in Germany. Their factory magazine and the NSKK elements of it. So now there are other American car companies that are working with the Germans, so it's not just Ford. Okay, yes, this I thought was interesting. This is a period poster, but notice it's a pleasant trip to Germany. Of course, it's all in English, including Germany instead of Deutschland. So yes, this part of Germany's outreach to the rest of the world to come and visit. So we gain a little money, foreign exchange from that. People are coming with their dollars, their pounds, their French francs, or whatever, and converting it to German money, and then Germany can then spend it on other things to import. Okay, destroyer escort role has advanced. Okay, good. Now we're gonna still keep pushing here, but not ahead of anything. Underway replenishment, perioditis, escort role. Well, still got 3 going, so I'm gonna leave it to that at this time. Aerial mines, we like that. Let's see, the Soviets sold us. No, I don't want to buy supplies yet. USA, can we sell some more supplies? Nope, it's impossible. Okay. Brazil. Well, I want to increase sales, so let's come up to the top and work our way down. People who have, like Belgium here, they need, and they don't have any money. Okay, it's not enough to. Does Burma want to buy one? No, we can't even sell the Burma. Okay, Canada. They need, and they have some money. Offer trade, so no. Finland. They need some. They have some money. Right, so let's see. Now, Greece, maybe. Now, Ireland. We'll just do 1 with Ireland. Oh, we can do 2. Let's try 2. Paul, we can't get to. Norway, they need 1 but don't have any money. Republic of China, we sort of didn't do that last time. They've got some money, so let's see if they can. No, they're not going to buy from us. Romania, they still have a lot of extra money. Maybe we can do another small trade with them. There we go. Sweden. No. not enough money. Switzerland, don't have much money. Okay, well, Yugoslavia and not too much money, but can we even do a one with them? Okay, let's do that. That'll help. Build up our resources. Money is a resource. We're not. We're going to let this go down if that's the case. For a little while. So we can sell a bunch more. Okay. Back down to medium popularity, bummer. Okay, rebuild the Untersea boat flotilla, Zolzweed shore. Okay, the first, second, and third SS Standarten, or Standarten SS Totenkopf for Bond. We were talking about that earlier. That gives us these guys. Remove Theodore Ike from here and promote him up. I don't know who. Let's see here. Oh, we'll give it to Klingenberg. And we'll give the inspector overall to Ike. Did promote it, didn't we? I could search by name and get right to it. Why don't I do that? Because here he is. And we're going to attach this to the SS Hempt. Okay, reorganize the war ministry. We're still at a 50-50. Yeah, we're going to do that. And build more air bases in Northern Germany. And we're also going to see about building that flotilla there. Because that's almost done. There we go. I'll push out some of those. And the U.S. now wants to trade. We give them money for rare materials. No. We don't. We want to sell you things, and then we may buy some more rare materials. But somebody, I am. Yeah. Armored HQ's advanced. Great. Okay. We'll do battle commander right now. The NSDAP-OA India. The OA, Ausland organization. That's right. This is the organization that deals with German citizens, as opposed to, like we've been talking about, Austrians or Swiss citizens or Czech citizens of the, Sudetenland, or Hungarian citizens that are German. But these are dealing with German citizens living in other countries. And I found this some for sale letterhead. I presume it's real. Some letter. It was actually a letter from these guys. It was in India here in Calcutta. You can see they changed who it was, crossing out, but there's the P.O. box in Calcutta. And I don't know if that was the headquarters for all of India or just this is the Calcutta offices. But one of the things I recently reading it was the whether it was this exact office, but one of the OA offices in India is the one who sets up the 1938, I think, the last expedition to Tibet, the SS expedition to Tibet. And it was asked for by the Tibetans, according to the book that I've been reading, because of the war in China with Japan, and the Tibetans were sort of fearing more fearing the Chinese actually at this point than the Japanese, and were trying to look for allies against China, that China may try to grab up things. So it was actually sort of a diplomatic thing set up by that last expedition, requested by the Tibetans through one of the Indian AO offices, Ausland organizations. So that was a very real organization. Did it? Okay, study for level 1, yes, and yes, we'll take these guys as well. And where do we have? Oh, that's oh wait, okay. Poland, money for where? No, we'll just come in and conquer you, I think. And third U-boat flotilla. Yes, let's go with this. Windows U-boat. Box form this thing, so we'll take that as well. Now, okay, that's hardly completed, so we'll let that linger and rot down there for the moment. Notice these went up from 10 to 14 because it's adjusted, but still. We'll get that fairly quicker than we would get these guys. These guys have been adjusted down, which is unfortunate, but whatever. And okay, rare material, money. Can I sell more stuff to the U.S.? Oh, okay. Whoa. Very likely 8 supplies for 2. Possible. So 16 supplies for 4.5, 4.8. We can get that done. Good. I want to continue to improve our relations, particularly with Japan, so we'll go with that. We'll stop those. We'll decline those, I should say. Yeah, got into that big time. Can we sell you supplies now, Japan? Oh, you're still not positive. I sell you steel? We got a lot of steel. No. Italy, yes, teeny little bit, but the trade will help relations. Okay, yes. Okay, the Lish Brigade, form the Lish Brigade, great, good. The 2nd Infantry Division motorized, that's a late war image of that rocket launcher on the half track. Yes, we'll do that. Upgrade this. Yes. And yes. Let's come down here and take a quick look. They're all going to take a while, but yep, we'll just leave them there. They're going to get through the production in time. We're powering through it. We're starting into some of these other things. Okay, direct unit fire control. Training. Direct fire unit. Ah, I'm messing that up right now. Oh, and armor unit training. Self-sealing tanks, that's important. Yeah. Oh well, maybe we're pushing too far in the red because we've lost that high popularity. Oh wow, we'll push that down and make sure that is only being researched right now. Soviets. Will you buy some supplies for me today? Oh, come on, Soviet. Okay. Okay, let's cancel that there. I still haven't written the text to this. It's not a bug. The Berliner Illustrated Zeitung did a two magazine spread on this, covering this guy's German reporter, I think, / spy. Yes, he's in the magazine, but yes, spy. Spy may not be entirely accurate, but he's going down to Berlin. That's, and I keep forgetting his name, but he's the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. There's the Temple Mount behind him, or the Al-Aqsa Mosque, depending on which side of the question you are on. Looking out over that, there he is. He is a vehement anti-Semite, and at the core of a lot of the spreading elements of Arabism coming up in the 20th century from him. A lot of it comes out of him, vehemently anti-Semitic. Part of it is sort of a practical anti-colonial, and the colonial powers, of course, were the British and the French, so it's, for them it was an alliance with the Germans looked good, so yeah. And they go into sort of the Palestinian problem. Before there was just a Jewish guy looking up there. This was sort of an idea for who was where, the sort of different zones, British riot police type military, riot military I should say, because those weren't police. The article goes into how the Jews would secretly buy land through front people. So the Arabs who were selling them to didn't know that they were, they weren't, this was no confiscation. This was just like, hey, I have a big bag of money here. Who wants to sell me land? Well, the Arabs wouldn't sell to the Jews, so they got these, the Arab landowners. So they got somebody to front for them. Maybe they were Arabs, I don't know. But they got a front person to buy the land. So they buy some land, and then they would do a pop-up, like modern America pop-up restaurants or whatever. They'd come out, they'd prefab a bunch of stuff. That's like a watchtower. Prefab a bunch of buildings, and then just all motor out to wherever it was and pop up a settlement all in one day to get there, to keep the Arabs from attacking them. And they would have to wall it, and if you can see here is what these wooden walls were sort of double thick, 2 sets of wood, and they would pour sand, fill bags up and then carry them up and pour them into there to fill sand to make it bulletproof, because the Arabs would snipe at them and shoot at them. And so they would set up the community behind the walls to be able to live and have firing slits and be able to duck down and all that kind of stuff. And if you note here, this is taken at night. a lot of the imagery for Jews, and if you in the National Socialist Germany, the term Jew is like it becomes a term for something bad. Jewish capitalism, Jewish bankers, Jewish what, just Jew this, Jew that, Jew, and anything Jew is bad, and it becomes that way. And so they try to do this, and they very much start equating Jews, well, even before the takeover, with vermin of some sort, and at night, and talking about the mythological elements of National Socialism. This is something that I didn't know, and it's something culturally. In Germany, and Germans, you can correct me if I'm wrong about how it is today, but this is according to the author Erich Kurlander, who did all his research in Germany. In German, he says, it's original source research. When for his book, he, not that he hadn't read or looked at post-war biographies or autobiographies or post-war anything. He did, but he says he didn't use any of that for his research unless it was citing specific sources from the time period that he could verify. Because people after the war were, oh, I had nothing to do with Nazis, or oh, I was duped into it, or they were trying to sell salacious, the whole, he very much says the vril. You've heard of vril probably if you looked around the Nazi occult thing and the modern sort of Nazi occult journalism. Vril was nowhere in any of the Nazi lexicons being used. There was a novel with people from under the earth that had the vril thing, but that was not in the lexicon of any of the documentations of any of the stuff that he's ever found. So vril is entirely out, but as a real thing that the Nazis were thinking on. But so he looks at all of his research is period documents. Like some of them were letters from one Nazi leader to another Nazi leader, private letters. Others were various people like Goebbels' journals, that were written on, on that day, so it was what they were thinking at the time, or documents and stuff from the time period. And so they very much were equating the so in Germany, unlike America, and I don't know what it is like today, but in Germany, werewolves were good guys, were the good guys. Werewolves weren't bad or evil. Werewolves in some of the mythologies wouldn't eat or harm humans. They only ate like animals like sheep or whatever. And they were protectors, and protectors from wolves of people in the forest. So this werewolf, and there were werewolf organizations before the rise of any of the Nazis, particularly in occupied areas of the Saarland to the French that were killing French occupiers. So they go into this stuff, and you probably heard, many of us history nerds have heard of sort of the werewolf movement at the end of the Nazi regime, which were often kids, but sort of a guerrilla movement that was set up. But the werewolf is well looked on as a positive thing within Germany at the time. Vampirism, and if you notice particularly the movie Nosferatu, but vampirism is also a very real thing, but a very evil thing and a very bad thing. Werewolves good, vampires bad. And it's Jewish vampirism, and the way that the author puts it, that the way these people are talking, they believed it. They believed that Jews. I don't mean that there was necessarily a Jewish vampire like. Now, if you look at the movie with Dracula, which is I think a really cool movie, unlike Nosferatu, the Von Helsing, the Jew, and is a vampire fighter. Now, remember, that's sort of in Bram Stoker and the Anglo myths, not the German myths, where Nosferatu is the German view, that the Jews bring pestilence, they're bloodsuckers, literally bloodsuckers. But it's not that they're some special, super powerful, no. They believed the Jews were so dangerous because they had superpowers. That's part of the Nazi elite mythology. maybe that's the term I should use, Nazi elite mythology, that they believed the Jews had superpowers. And this is why the Jews were so bad. But they were a sucking superpower. They were a draining of superpower. They were a vampiric superpower. So vampires were bad and they were Jewish. And so you notice this picture of the Jews armed at night, and you're looking down on them. You can't, unless these guys are really short, and they're not. You have to be like up on a car, up on something, headlights or whatever, at night. Photography at night's not good. Whether that's flash or not, I don't know, but I don't think so because, well, no, maybe there is some flash. I don't know if you see some there, but you also sort of see a strong light coming this way as well as maybe a flash from that way. But so it's at night, you're looking down on them. So this is sort of Jewish vermin moving in. Now, none of this, and I had the article translated for me, so none of that's mentioned in the article, okay? I just want to be very clear. They don't use bad language about the Jews here. But this photo is sort of looking down. It's at night. It's at dark. It's that sort of imagery. Okay, see, a lot of the Nazi coming out of Goebbels was very sophisticated. Goebbels hated the sort of over the top. Some of the movies that they're often shown in schools or whatever, how Nazi propaganda against the Jews. That's with the sort of over the top portrayal of Jews. That's what Goebbels hated. Not that he disagreed with the ideas that were being presented, but just that it was ineffective and bad. He hated that type of propaganda. Okay, this is, they go out and driving around the desert. They wave Nazi flags to keep from being either shot at or rocks thrown at them, so that the Arabs out there knew enough to know that the Nazi flag was not some Europeans to attack. So they would just presume that you were British. If you're a European, you're driving around out in the desert in a nice car or something, whether on roads or off roads, you're going to be British, so you might be assaulted. So they were very much, and they talk about in the article, flying the swastika flag as a protective element so that they wouldn't be randomly attacked. They were traveling through various areas, and although they were being escorted by some Arabs or different tribes, they wouldn't be attacked under the Nazi flag. That was an important element of the article. Now, remember I was just talking about before. Now we have an Arab guy who you're below him. He's sitting up on a horse. He's looking off away from the camera in sort of an Alexander pose. The Alexander pose that you can see is sort of maybe classically sort of the other way, the head turned the other way, but the head turned to the side, sort of looking up. So not looking at you in the face, sort of looking up off to the side. And that is a real historic pose of Alexander the Great. The reason Alexander the Great posed that way is he was deaf in the other ear, so he was turning his good ear towards you and speak into this ear, so he's sort of looking up and off the way and having the ear towards you, because he was deaf in the other ear. That's how the Alexander heroic pose gets into the culture, that you can see generals and people to this day using the Alexander the Great pose, and that's where it comes from. And it starts with Alexander the Great, and it comes through it as because he was deaf in one ear, and so he was presenting an ear towards you instead of looking you straight into the face for portraiture and whatnot. And that's how he would talk to sort of people, because looking at you out of the sort of the corner of his eye with his good ear towards you to be able to hear things. But so you've got this looking up at him difference. Now the German Nazi belief, racial belief, without any evidence. See, a lot of the Nazi beliefs have absolutely no evidence behind them. They have pure assertion behind them because they believed it. But without any evidence, they believed that the Arabs were an Aryan type people that were fighting on their side. So now, of course, they didn't know that the Arabs were a Semitic people. A Jewish Semitic anti-Semitism, they were Semitic. The Nazis believed a bunch of stuff with and asserted had enough bunch of stuff without any evidence to support their beliefs. But they would talk about scientific evidence this, scientific evidence that. But as we know from modern genetics, at least, the Arab peoples, which may be different than the say the Coptic Christians or the Berbers or other peoples in North Africa, but the Arabs are a Semitic people like the Jews. But the Nazis believed them not to be Semitic, believed them to be some sort of Arab or some sort of derivation off of Aryans or something. So in Nazi mythology, they thought they could have an alliance with the Arabs, but they didn't know when they were talking to the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem that they were talking to a Semite, because he was pure Arab, so he was good, but pure Arab means pure Semite. So maybe the Jews do have magical powers because they were able to trick the Nazis who had special Jew-finding powers. At least one guy thought he could, through radiation waves, detect who Jews were. Basically through dowsing. Thought they could have Jew detectors. So yeah, they were mistaken about that. But so, and this talks about from this article, 3 Jews and 2 Arabs dead, 1 Jew and 3 Arabs wounded, dead and wounded in 24 hours. Talks about the list of this stuff. Here, this is more of the Arab meeting. This is sort of the British Viceroy ruling of Palestine here. So they're doing this stuff that's going on. So you have the Jews are trying to come in. Now also at this time in Tel Aviv, there is a Nazi NSDAP party headquarters, and they're also at this time dealing with the Jews too. At this time, they're sort of trying to deal with the Jews to get the Jews out of Germany and to move here. So it's sort of a double front game. It's sort of like quietly, hey, yeah, Jews, you want Nazi support to move to Palestine? You know, and Palestine, you hate the Jews, so you want to support us because we're anti-Jewish. Of course, they didn't say all that out loud to everybody. So we can support an Arab uprising. Basically, because of mechanics, it's not much of a thing, but it's a thing. Or leave them alone. We're going to decide to do so. I think historically they didn't really support an Arab uprising at this time, but we get the opportunity to do so. It just sort of makes these, which we can't really see, some of the area around here gets a higher revolt risk. It's about it, but hey. Okay. Black Regiment Goring. Okay. Keep Goring happy. The regiment began the war. Stab. Watch battalions. Berlin. Okay, cool. So we get this, and that's also in the production queue, is it? Yeah, it's almost done. So let's get that to the top. Get that one to the top. Okay, rare material. I don't want to spend any more money. I want to buy, and we're already at 390. Okay, but we're in October. Now we're definitely not going to get Austria in 1937 because that would put us over, I believe. I'm not absolutely sure about the numbers, but over the 450. But even if it does, because I've noticed, I've noticed that it's sort of potential coming here, not ready yet. Okay. The 4-year plan, I almost tried to pronounce the German there. Magazine, this is the magazine for the 4-year plan to help coordinate the 4-year plan. Sort of a, you know, industry magazine there. So it gains us support and popularity for that. The 4-year plan did put a lot of people to work at well-paying jobs. So the 4-year plan was very popular in Germany in that sense. Okay, Frank battles Czech police. There's Karl Frank That's this guy here. He's the number 2 guy in the SDP in Czechoslovakia, and he's the hardliner. He eventually very much becomes or goes into the SS, where Conrad Headline is definitely a Nazi, but not maybe as hardcore. But he's a real hardcore. So, and he's provoking and battling the Czechs, so weakening threats. And the Czechs realize that, because there's all kinds of propaganda going on coming out of Germany about this, so they realize very much that all these Czech disturbances are being provoked by Germany. So they get that. Okay, the Volksbund NSSAP, the Volksbund National Socialiste Schweizer Arbeitspartei. It was founded in 1933 by these 2 guys who died. Sonderegger, who died in 1944, was a rather popular and would have been probably a significant leader, but he dies too early. Former member of the National Front. On the 1st of July 1938, the Swiss government forbade the use of non-Swiss symbols for Swiss parties. Postcards seen above of the NSSAP Volksbund with government swastika band stamps. So they actually had these stamps, verboten stamps, that if you were sending in a postcard through the mail, they would cover up the offending symbol. And which can be seen in many countries, particularly, and I haven't looked at all parties, but I know, like in Spain, you have a lot of fragmentation on the left. Anarchists, various socialists, different communists. I think the 2 main communist groups in Spain were, Lenin, Stalinist and Trotskyites. You also have the main thing from Kaiserreich, the syndicalist type movements. So you had a lot of fragmentation on the left in Spain as well. Well, you find fragmentation often on the right in these countries. And so this is one thing that the Nazis, as they're coming to power, and once they get to power, and I was talking about earlier about the different occult groups. Well, either you're on board in Germany with the Nazis, or you're not in part of social life of Germany. And so, like I keep saying, and as I think is highly entertaining, is that there was, National Socialist gardening clubs. Well, so if you were an occultist and you were not part of the National Socialist group, you were banned. In countries like Switzerland, where you don't have a charismatic figure, or you don't really have, because the Germans, because we're postulating the Germans putting in a lot of resources into this Swiss thing. And I say, if Gustav, I believe, I'm not saying it is a fact, but I just believe it's conjecture, yes, but I think there's a likelihood. I think if Gustav had lived, he would have put a lot more resources into Switzerland. I just can't imagine it. I just literally can't imagine him not, since he was a German Swiss citizen. He held dual citizenship. He was, in both countries, and he was in charge of the AO, the Ausland organization. So he was in charge of Nazis looking outside of Germany. So I just can't imagine him not putting more resources into Switzerland. Now, somebody pointed out, yes, it's very conjectural of me to saying that had he lived, he would have influenced Hitler and the Nazis enough to invade Switzerland. Okay, yeah, that's conjecture. We don't know what they would have done. That's a big what if. Now, I think it's a real what if to question, but and there may be other evidence that somebody could present one way or another. Hitler's love of Switzerland, which he did not like Switzerland as a country, or something like that. But I don't know if you could find some other evidence that would push it why they would never have gone into, even if there was more support for it, gone into Switzerland. You can argue that. I believe firmly that once World War II, as the greater thing was over, they would have at some point They weren't going to leave Switzerland. They weren't going to leave Germans living in other countries. That just was not going to happen under National Socialism, because they needed to unite as part of their religion, to unite the race under one government, if you will. So it was. Now, what was going to happen to German or French-speaking Switzerland? I don't know. Were they going to move everybody out? I don't know. Or were they going to let them become part of whatever France was going to be? Maybe. Or was it going to be some sort of French-Swiss thing? I don't know. Obviously, Mussolini wanted to get his hands on some of it, particularly the Italian-speaking areas. So, would there still been a Switzerland afterwards? I don't know, but the German parts would have been German and part of Germany. I firmly believe that. So, but this, because we've gone down, we have opportunities to support this. So these groups are fracturing because they don't have either a really good charismatic leader, or two, they don't have one sort of sugar daddy, if you will, saying, because that's what you see very much in Spain with the Spanish Civil War, which is basically over. They're just occupying everything but Fortress Madrid. You see the idea that the Soviet aid was going to primarily, overwhelmingly, 70% or more of it was going to Soviet elements within the Republican coalition, if you will. In my opinion, because of the Civil War, there was absolutely no hope that even if the Republicans won, that there was going to be anything sort of like a socialist or an anarchist or a pluralistic democracy in Spain. It would have been if not in actual fact, in a de facto fact, another Soviet republic, or 3 or 4. It would have been organized along the Soviet system, and by Soviet I mean like the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. It would have been another Soviet organized up and loyal to Stalin, because all the units that were getting supplies and organization were Stalinist units. The people in the Civil War were recognizing this, so when you were, whoa, what unit of the Republicans to join up? Those anarchists over there who have 3 bullets per gun and not enough guns for everybody, or that Soviet unit over there who has machine guns for everybody, or at least rifles for everybody, and some machine guns, and lots of ammo, and good food, and they get boots with the anarchists. If you can find shoes, you get to wear them. If you don't have shoes, you don't get shoes, kind of thing. Which group are you going to join up? Well, you're all fighting for the same cause, so, well, even though you may believe that you're an anarchist, or a Trotskyite, or a syndicalist, or I don't know, whatever it might be, you're going to go fight with the better Soviet unit. They were the ones in charge, and you look at a lot of the battles going on, that the Soviet units were held in reserve because they wanted to bleed white the non-loyal units, send them in the first wave, send them in to die off in larger batches, and if it looked winnable, whatever battle, assault, attack, whatever looked winnable, then send in the Soviet force, the Soviet-backed forces in Spain. These are, again, were maybe the commissar, maybe some advisors that were Russian, but the people were all Spanish, but these were the ones that were loyal to the Soviet within here. Only send those in if victory looks assured. Otherwise, give up. We've bled the other units white. We've also bled the nationalists white, hopefully, in attacking them. But so that's why the Soviets. So that's just if you have a strong supporter. Now, so Switzerland did not have a strong supporter. Generally speaking, these things just will give more popularity to the National Socialist Party in Switzerland, which is this you see that other party. That was sort of the earlier party from this period. It should be the National Front. This here, see, it says NF for National Front. That shouldn't be the National Front. This should be the National Front. This might be the Front National, because the Front National was the French-speaking fascist unit. I'm blanking on the Italian fascist group. So yeah, this is the Front National was fascist. The National Front was National Socialist, and specifically they say that they were National Socialists. They were the Nazis. And earlier, and I probably mentioned this before, you will see signs, both indoor and outdoor, swastika signs in Switzerland. And it was perfectly legal to have swastika signs in Switzerland if you were a German political element. Because the Germans, not the Swiss speaking, or the Swiss who spoke German, but the German nationals living in Switzerland could use the swastika, but the Swiss could not. Sort of a distinction there. Because if you notice, like that, the other thing is they had a white swastika, not a black swastika and such. So it's and cruiser fire control, which I'm guessing is grayed out, which we're going to do cruiser damage control now. I forget what the Swiss Italian fascist movement, but in here, this part, it was the Front National. Over here, it was the National Front. And yes, spelled differently, but same basic words, and they were distinctly different. And to the best of my understanding, these guys were getting various Nazi stuff, and they were National Socialists and not just fascists. You find what is it? British Fascist League or something. Now they're using a swastika on top of a Union Jack. They're not nowhere near as popular as the British Union of Fascists. But so you do find fascists in Britain, fascists in some of these other countries that are calling themselves either National Socialists and or using the swastika, but they're really fascist because they don't have that racial and occult elements in their beliefs, in their documents. If you're not talking about blood and soil, no. Blood and soil, and they, when they referring to the blood and soil element, they are meaning that you're getting, I don't know, positive and negative, they're getting vibes or positive radiation, if you will, from the earth, from the soil, and your blood is being empowered by the soil. It's all this weird sort of magic that they believed in at the top. Okay, we've got through the Flak Regiment Goering, so let's put this here in Berlin since it was a Berlin-based unit. And no, von Manstein will not command it. This is a fairly decent unit. You got a paratrooper. Now, obviously, with heavy flak and regular flak, you can't air transport it, so you can't airdrop it. But yeah, this guy's cool. We'll give it to him. Again, AA means anti-aircraft, and that's a Luftwaffe uniform, so we'll put him in charge. So if you want to either reinforce the paratrooper unit, you can airdrop motorcycle units. You can. I don't know if you can airdrop this HQ. Whether it's is there a tag here? It may not be in here. I don't know. I don't know if you can airdrop that HQ. And German light vehicles, they're heavy and that they take up a lot of space, but you can airdrop a light vehicle unit. I do believe, unless it's been changed. I know it was at one time. But they're heavy in that you take a lot of aircraft to do that. But so the two that I know that can't are heavy and the standard anti-aircraft. So you just want to either, like I say, reinforce some other airborne unit, or you just want a a smaller, lighter airborne unit, especially to land in a currently non-occupied province, to land and sort of secure somebody's rear retreat. It can be useful that way if you want to use it as such. Okay. Trade agreement. No, we don't want to give up any more money. And let's attach this to some Luftwaffe unit nearby. Oh boy. Lots of police. There's naval. How far away are we? Oh, okay. Well, that's just up there. Okay. Let's move you to Berlin. So you're. Oh. Justice. Same old mouse, just gotta redo the software to do things a little different. No. Albert Leo Schlesinger, that's the ship, not the guy. It's another, he was one of another martyrs, I believe. The ship training, Hamburg. Sister ship of the horse vessel. Then it was named after who was executed in 1923 by French forces occupying the Ruhr. So he's one of the sort of Nazi. I don't know if he was a Nazi because it's 23, but one of those sort of myth spending. So we're getting a leadership bonus until December 29th. So brief for obviously minimal cost. The training ships out there helping. Obviously, you can use the training anywhere, but it's sort of meant for naval training. And I have confirmed that those vessels that like that, when sailing around, both literally and figuratively, and literally they were sometimes using sails. Oh shit! Nope. Damn. I caused this crash, if you can still hear this, because I messed with it while saving. If you do that, you can cause it to crash. Damn. Okay, well, hopefully this end of this recording is still sort of working, so we're going to end this here. More than past time to end it, but damn. See you next time.